Well, hello there, everybody. UFC on ESPN 9 is officially in the books, ladies and gentlemen, and it was capped off by a sensational performance by Gilbert Burns, defeating Tyron Woodley via unanimous decision. Absolute domination from start to finish. Huge win for Gilbert Burns, and that's how this crazy night has ended. My name is Mike Heck, everybody. Thanks for joining us to begin our post-fight coverage right here on MMAfighting.com. Now, later on, I will be joined by Mr. Alex K. Lee for our official post-fight show. But right now, we're getting ready to hear from some of the big winners. Augusto Sakai, I believe, is about to take the stage. We will hear from Gilbert Burns, I'm sure. And we'll hear, I think, from UFC President Dana White. I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about this card because it was absolutely crazy. But while we wait for all of this to happen, Jose Youngs is here backstage. I don't know if he's with us right now. Hey, what's going on, man? We'll chit-chat a bit here but as this is going on, but I do want to let you guys know that if you guys want to chime in with any reactions to what we just saw to the UFC for the UFC's return to Vegas tonight, questions, thoughts, everything on your mind. But first, Jose, for a fight card that people thought was more top-heavy, this was a lot of fun, was it not?
What's up, guys? Now you can see me. Yeah, and I'll make sure to put the press comments on as soon as Augusto takes the stage. I just see him sitting back there. But yeah, top to bottom, pretty eventful card. Really exciting. I think it was. There were obviously a few duds. I think the co-main event we're about to hear from Augusto here in a few minutes it felt a little off on this card. It started off hot. There were a lot of exciting finishes right out of the gate. I mean, even in the back, we were like, I kind of like this pace. I hope we can keep this up. Yeah, it was a good start. I don't want to say it slowed down at all because even the decisions were really exciting. But yeah, it was all around an enjoyable experience to cover this Apex card here in Las Vegas.
It's going to be a difficult night for Dana White and the crew to choose bonuses. Lots of performances, a few fights that were definitely in discussion for fight of the night until Billy Q and Spike Carlisle in there and delivered, in my opinion, one of, if not the best 3-round fights of the year. No doubt about that. The smaller kid delivered chaos tonight. We're going to find out who the real winners of an extra $50,000 will be momentarily. But what would be your selections, Jose, more so for the performance of the night?
Performance of the night, as I pull this up. The Casey Kenny one was uber impressive, considering it was an arm and guillotine over Luis Smolka, who's been in the division for so long. The Brandon Royval, I might give him one, considering Tim Elliott was just such a stalwart of the division, high-level grappling. He ended up finishing Tim Elliott, former title challenger, and then, oh man, he was tough. It's hard not to give it to Mackenzie Dern, getting the first ever submission by a leg lock in UFC women's history. So I'd probably Dern for making history, and then it's a coin flip between Kenny and Royval for me. That's tough. I don't know. I'd give all three of them bonuses. I'm looking at the bout sheet right here.
Yeah, Roosevelt Roberts is probably in that.
Yeah, honestly. Jamal Hill also had a phenomenal performance too. So it's tough. I hate to be Dana White.
Yeah, there's gonna be some disappointed people tonight. No doubt about that. But if you're just joining us, we're about to hear from Augusto Sakai following his split decision win over Blagoy Ivanov in the co-main event. We'll hear from Gilbert Burns. Jose, are we going to hear from Dana White tonight?
I don't know, honestly. I'll try and find out. I literally haven't seen hide or tail of him at all today. Even on the screen, I haven't seen him walking around. So it's a little different from most fight nights. We always get a glimpse of it. So I'll try to find out. When Augusto's talking, I'll try to find out.
By Gilbert Burns, with Daniel Cormier, Michael Bisping, and our great crew. I'm Brendan Fitzgerald. For more post-show on ESPN Plus starts in just moments. But Sports Center with John Bush.
But what an interesting night. Some great fights. I think every under the radar fight that we talked about all delivered in some way. Because even Casey and Smolka, as short as it was, that fight was absolutely bananas.
That fight delivered. That was the one I had circled, and my goodness, did it deliver.
Royval and Elliott was just this gnarly scramble fest with all sorts of transitions. It was just what an incredible fight that was. But Spike Carlisle, your former colleague Sean El-Shadi had maybe the tweet of the night when it comes to covering this event. He said, "I am all in on every time Spike Carlisle fights, for the rest of his career." How can you not? That guy is just, I don't know how he's human, Jose. I really don't understand that after that fight. I want to see Spike Carlyle on every fight card. Everyone.
He's even just as they say in the business, he looks good getting off the bus too. I mean, he even looks like a fighter with the hair, the mustache, the muscles, the persona, the creepy laugh that he does. I love everything about Spike Carlyle. I wish he maybe, if I had one knock, I wish he would maybe utilize cardio a little more, or maybe just not try and just blitz someone in the first like 30 seconds of the fight. I mean, Billy Quarantillo, as I was corrected today. I asked him, like, is this just where your veteranship comes out? He was 100%. Like, he's been in decisions before, and even looking at Spike Carlyle's previous opponents, yeah, he fought a lot of guys that had a lot of like some impressive records, like undefeated records, but the guys that his opponents beat weren't. He's like they didn't beat anyone of note. He like Billy Quarantillo prides himself on fighting guys that don't have padded records. And Billy Quarantillo himself, like, and that showed today. And my God, like, Spike Carlyle put him through hell for 5 minutes, or I should say 4 minutes and 57 seconds in that first round. And then, man, Billy Quarantillo blew me away coming back after that. And very well spoken. Caught me off guard about how well he how well he held himself up on that podium. Very well spoken. It reminds me of when Alexander Hernandez made his debut, like after his first scrum. You're like, oh, this guy knows how to work the media. So Billy Quarantillo is someone to look out for.
Yeah, for sure. And how did you guys and gals all react to the media tent when Spike Carlyle walked back to his quarter with like 5 seconds left in the round, get dropped with the left hand? And I think even more crazy than that was that he just looked at Billy Q and smiled after he got dropped and probably saved by the bell there. Like, how did everybody react back there?
I think everyone reacted the same way you guys did. We were just like, what just happened? Like, is the fight over? Like, it didn't surprise me because Spike, if someone's going to pull that off, it's going to be Spike Carlyle. He's going to try and walk away. But Billy made a note of that. Like, when he throws these punches, or he'll like miss on purpose, or like his back will be turned and he'll come back with a spinning back fist. So he was a little hesitant to just blitz in, but paid off.
We also, while we're talking about the bonuses, this is such a recency, what have you done for me lately sport? So 10 fights after the fact. Chris Gutierrez, what a performance he had tonight. It was best performance of his UFC career against Vince Morales. Those leg kicks were brutal. He might be in discussion for this too, because we had some rare finishes tonight.
It's unfortunate that was the first fight of the night, because like our own Casey Leydon says, you don't win bonuses for the first fight of the night, unless you're like the Polo Reyes war. And with that, Augusto Sakai is about to take the podium, so I'm going to switch this.
All right, we will hear from probably now a top 10 heavyweight contender, Augusto Sakai, getting a victory over Burgoy.
Well, Augusto,
What?
now undefeated 4-0 in the UFC. How does it feel to have that kind of record in the UFC?
Por aí, Augustão, 4-0 no Ultimate. Como é que tá se sentindo com esse recorde agora no Ultimate?
I'm so happy. I'm very happy.
Tonight's fight was a tough fight. I mean, Burgoy is a tough character for sure. How did the fight play out versus your expectations, and were you expecting it to be that difficult?
Foi um luto difícil, um luto cerrado. Sabe, Guilherme é um cara duro. Foi tudo que tu esperava a luta, ou tu esperava a luta ser um pouco meio diferente?
Eu esperava acabar com a luta antes do terceiro round, mas eu sabia que ele era um cara duro, que isso podia acontecer, né? E eu estava pronto para isso.
I'm always ready to finish the fight. I want to kill or die, but I knew he was a tough guy, so I was ready to go to the full length of the fight.
There was one criticism. It was the fence grab in the third round. I know you didn't do that on purpose, but it's kind of, just reactionary. But do you want to address that? Because there's a lot of people that say that changed the course of the fight.
Estão criticando muito, não sei se nem você se lembra, que você segurou a grade, né, na hora no terceiro round do último takedown. Está sendo criticado, mas você acha que faz alguma diferença no resultado da luta, ter segurado a grade ali, que foi uma coisa involuntária de você?
Foi uma coisa totalmente voluntária, eu não queria fazer isso, mas acredito que não mudaria.
It was something completely subconscious. It was involuntary. I didn't really plan on it. Something I would never done that on purpose. But it wouldn't have changed the result of the fight. I won the fight.
As the scores were being read out, the first score was 30-27 for Burgoy. Were you conscious? Did you understand that or hear it? And what did you think of the score?
Tu entendeu essa parte, né? Quando o primeiro que o juiz falaram do resultado foi de 30-27 pro teu oponente, pro Ivanov. O que você achou quando eles falaram isso?
I hear it very crazy. Is very crazy.
I thought it was crazy.
Fair enough. Well, listen, 4-0 is an impressive record in the UFC. So, what do you want next? What's the next move for you?
Tá 4-0 aí com performances maravilhosas, sensacionais. Qual é o seu próximo passo na categoria peso pesado do Ultimate?
Eu quero alguém dentro do top 10 e vamos ver aí quem está disponível.
I would really like someone ranked top 10, and whoever is available, I'm ready to go.
Augusto right here. Your champion, Stipe Miocic, isn't able to fight anytime soon because he's not able to train, and he's also, of course, a firefighter in Ohio. With this trilogy against Daniel Cormier kind of at a pause, where do you think the division stands right now with the champion so inactive?
Como o Stipe não tá lutando agora, né? Ele é lutador, ele tá em Ohio trabalhando. E tem essa trilogia também com ele, com Daniel Cormier. Como é que você se vê? Qual é o seu papel? Você esperar alguma coisa? Qual é o seu papel na divisão de peso pesado no Ultimate? Qual é o futuro da divisão? Com essa trilogia aí esperando e com o campeão aí esperando sem luta.
Acredito que eu tenho que continuar fazendo o que eu estou fazendo, degrau por degrau, e continuar subindo até eu ter minha oportunidade também.
I really believe I just need to keep doing what I just did, one step at a time, one fight at a time, and my time will come.
Thank you.
More. Finish? Yeah. Okay.
Caboose.
All right, so one of the big winners from tonight, Augusto Sakai getting a split decision win over Blagoy Ivanov. And what an interesting set of scorecards being read. I can't believe there's a 30-27 for Ivanov, but here we are. We knew we would be running into this at some point. I think a lot of people were a little befuddled with the Billy Q decision as well, even though I did score for Billy Q, 29-28. It was just such a wild fight. It could have gone either way, but we're back with Jose Youngs. Well, let's get your take on this, Jose, because I don't know if you're going to be with us on the post show, but Gilbert Burns, I mean, good God almighty. If you told either of us, I'm sure, a year ago that Gilbert Burns would headline a UFC card against Tyron Woodley in 2020, we probably would have been like, probably not 2020, but, you know, maybe he'll get there at some point. But, man, did he come through in a big way tonight.
It's an interesting question. If there was going to be a welterweight that's going to talk themselves into a big main event fight, not in a negative way like a Colby Covington or like a Chael Sonnen or like one of these guys that like talks trash so much that they just force them. Gilbert Burns is trying to pick a fight with every single human being that's alive on Twitter. Not because he dislikes them, it's because he just wants to fight. Like I saw him, he was in Jacksonville for Vicente Luque's fight. And when Marvin Vittori's opponent, I can't remember off the top of my head, when he fell out, I saw Gilbert Burns be like, I'll fight. I'm here. I'm like 183 pounds. I'll fight. Like Gilbert Burns is down to fight anyone. So, yes, it's a surprise that he got it, and it was actually like I'm more surprised that it was a planned like main event. It's not like Gilbert Burns had to slot in at the last minute as like a late minute replacement. So I'm a little surprised that he got like the not full camp, but like it was always Woodley versus Burns. It's not like it was Woodley versus Covington. Covington gets hurt and Burns comes in, but I'm not surprised Gilbert Burns got these fights because he will fight any human being that has two legs and two hands.
Gilbert Burns is in a very good position right now, and like you said, he's an active guy. He went 5 rounds with the former champion. I'm sure he was a little tired. He took some shots throughout the fight, but he was very dominant here. And if it was up to him, he would step in next Saturday at UFC 250 if he had the option. But you know, I'm sure me and AK will get more into it during the official post-fight show in a little while. But where does Tyron Woodley go from here, man?
Man, that is a difficult question because I think we both picked Tyron Woodley to win this fight. Even in the preview show, I said I favored Woodley. Not heavily, but I favored him. And it was like you said, like the Covington fight's the one to make. And I said it's really hard to fantasy matchmake fights without seeing them. The Covington fight's gone right now. Unless I'm trying to think of who else is out there. Like the Mike Chiesas of the world are out there, of course. Like Jeff Neal's trying to make a big splash. Man, it's tough. There's not like Vicente Luque is out there too, Nico Price, but like Tyron Woodley, yeah, he's on a 2-fight losing streak, but like he's still a name. He's still a headline cards. At this point, it's like the UFC needs to find 2 fighters in the United States, a headline card. Like Tyron really could do that. It's just a matter of if he wants to and who he wants to fight. Because like I would love to see Tyron Woodley fight Michael Case or like a Rafael dos Anjos or a Jeff Neal of the world, but it's like Tyron Woodley doesn't have to fight those kind of guys. He's a former champion. If he wants to stay active, of course he can stay active, but it's tough. I don't think there's a definite like Leon Edwards is a cool fight. It doesn't really make sense anymore. So you got to feel real bad for Leon Edwards. Like if the Tyron Woodley that showed up against Gilbert Burns tonight, if Leon Edwards had a performance like that in London, with all that marketing behind him, a big push in front of his hometown crowd, like you'd have to assume he's like on the short list, if not the next title challenger. So interesting scenarios at 175 pounds in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to take a step back, unfortunately, even though he isn't going to want to hear that. But that's just the nature of the beast at this point. I think
Robbie Lawler rematch. There you go.
There's one.
That's
maybe a fight with Cerrone could headline a card. I mean, it's step back, but it's still a big name. So that's out there. Ponzinibbio maybe, but even that's kind of a tough fight right now. I don't know if I would want that one. I'd probably want fun fights at this point. 38 years old.
I would do the Lawler rematch. They were supposed to fight in Minneapolis over the summer before that fell out. So I think Lawler hasn't fought since, I don't know. I can't even remember Robbie Lawler's last fight. So I think it's the Ben Askren fight. He hasn't fought then. Both of them had two fights fall apart. Robbie Lawler's, of course, fight Ponzinibbio in the winter, and that fell out. And then, of course, the Tyron Woodley rematch. So, yeah, Lawler Woodley 2 I think it's time to do it.
Yeah, I wonder if usually the main event losers haven't been up at these press conferences, so I don't know if we're going to hear from Tyron Woodley. I'm sure we're going to hear from Gilbert Burns, which will be a lot of fun. Any word on Dana yet? Do we know?
I have no idea.
So it'll be a surprise. Maybe they'll stream him in from his office, from his room.
Wouldn't be surprised. It's like 20 feet away behind a cement wall, so it's not like it's a far walk.
Dana's talking to ESPN right now, from what I've gathered. So we'll see. We'll see if he graces you guys with his presence, and if he does, we will bring that here. But if you guys have reactions, we're looking at some of the finishes here tonight. Spike Carlisle, just such a savage. Billy Q. I mean, we can't take anything away from Billy Q too.
He won. Billy Q won. That's at the end of the day.
And everyone said
he won.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example. That's one of those examples where even though Spike Carlisle lost the fight, he still got a big boost with the performance. Yeah. Like, there's no way if that fight does not win Fight of the Night tonight, I quit. I mean, I don't really quit, but that just has to be Fight of the Night. That's the nominee for Fight of the Year, probably.
It's not going to win Fight of the Year. Nothing's being Joanne and Wiley, but I like how you phrased it. It's the best 3-round fight.
Yeah.
I think Wiley Joanne is going to be one of the 5 greatest fights I've ever seen in my entire life, period. So it's going to be hard to beat that for Fight of the Year. And with that, Dana's here, so I'm going to flip this.
Dana's here. All right. We're going to go to UFC President Dana White, about to take the podium right now to react to an.
What's up, gang? No gate, no fans. I want your opinion on something, too. Fight of the night was Elliott and Royval, and performance of the night was Dern and Burns. What do you guys think was the fight of the night? Do you think
Ornzillo and Carlisle.
Yeah? Is that what everybody thinks? Yeah. Yeah. We had a hard time. We had a hard time back there tonight, which is always good when it's a hard time. But I hate seeing some of these kids get. We'll figure it out. I'll give them something.
Very nice. Well, we did have our first UFC event inside the Apex.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts. The product, the way it looked, how it felt.
It's great. I mean, listen, the building is beautiful on TV. It looks great. We're not in some massive arena with no seats filled. It works. It's the timing on building this place was absolutely perfect. It couldn't have worked out any better, and I'm sure it's been great for you guys. I mean, this place was built and designed for fights, so hopefully you felt the same way.
Yeah. A lot was made coming into this week of the small cage. We've talked about this in the past. I mean, was there a conscious decision to use the small cage in here? Could you put the big one in there if you wanted?
Yeah, we could, but it would be massive inside that room. And then, if I take this cage and put it in arenas, it looks tiny in the arena. So, yeah.
It ended up being very entertaining fights, though, and it seems like statistically you get more.
We had great fights in Florida too.
That's true.
Fights were great in Florida. To say that it's a catch-22. You know, of course, smaller cage engages guys more or whatever. But listen, if guys come to fight, they come to fight, whether you're in a big octagon or a small one. And you know, it'd be one thing if the fights all sucked in Florida and we're like, well, we got the smaller cage, but that's not the case.
Fair enough. The broadcast tonight did mention events on June 13th and June 20th as well. Is it safe to assume they'll take place here? Is that official yet?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Talk about Gilbert Burns. I mean, the guy looked absolutely incredibly, dominated a former champion. What did you think of Gilbert Burns' performance tonight?
Yeah, he looked incredible, man. Anywhere the fight goes, you standing. If they wrestle, if it goes to the ground, his jiu-jitsu is ridiculous. Great leg kicks. He hurt him to the leg. Great kicks to the head. I mean, that kid can do anything, and he's aggressive. I actually thought he would fight more aggressively than he did tonight, but you got to be careful with somebody as dangerous as Woodley.
Yeah. Where do you think he fits in right now? I mean, there's so many names at welterweight right now.
He's in the top 5. I mean, this kid breaks into the top 5. The welterweight division looks incredible now. You know, you got Usman, you got him, you got Colby Covington, you got Edwards and Masvidal, and you know, it's awesome.
Yeah. And last thing for me, I mean, I know you kind of wanted to get through tonight to see what happened, to figure out what to do with welterweight, but can you definitively say what is next for Usman, what the title fight is?
Yeah, so Tuesday we'll get back into the matchmaking room and we'll get that worked out. You know, if you look at the divisions and the way they're heating up right now, and thank God we're 4 fights in right now from after the break, so we're back on schedule. When we're done next weekend, we're back on schedule, and you know, these things are heating up to make some really fun fights this summer.
Yeah. Do you know what you want for him though? I mean, do you know what makes sense as the number 1 contender right now?
Not right now, because what happens is we get in the matchmaking meeting, and I don't know all the intimate details of what's going on with each guy and where their head is. So when we get in and we start working on these fights, the guys will download me and say, well, he's saying this and this guy's saying that. It's not as easy as people think, because we just go in and go, oh, this guy and that guy. You know, it's not that easy. I wish it was that easy.
Dana, at the beginning of the broadcast, you paid tribute to George Floyd. I don't know if you've seen what's going on in the country, like right now, with all the protests across the country. But what was in the decision to do that?
Yeah, we did for him, and we did for the Nevada State Athletic Commission doctor who just passed away too. He was a great guy, and you know, did a lot of fights and did a lot of the tough fights. You know, because we should. I mean, what happened was horrible, and it's something that's really affecting this country right now and the world. I mean, there's riots going on everywhere across the world right now. You know, it was the right thing to do.
What do you do with Tyron Woodley now? At his age, that's 2 performances in a row. He hasn't looked the best, hasn't looked like his old self. Is his time at the top coming to an end, do you think?
He'll determine that. I mean, I think that Tyron Woodley worked hard and got in great shape for this fight and took this fight very serious. And, you know, he got dominated tonight. He will drop in the rankings, and we'll see what's next for him and see how he does if he comes back. But, I mean, the guy's 38 years old. He's had huge gaps in his, you know, in his fight time. You know, it's been almost 2 years, I think, since he fought. So that's tougher to do as you get older, even if you're a physical freak like he is.
Yeah. Welterweight is probably one of your most stacked divisions right now, but it's also one of the divisions that comes with perhaps the hardest negotiations. Right, those guys always seem to be causing issues. When you have someone like Burns show up, does that make it easier for you to say to the other guys, "Hey, if you don't want to take this fight, he'll take it"? Does it help you out?
Man, no, it's really not like that. If a guy doesn't want to fight, we don't push guys to fight. If a guy wants to sit up, Woodley's been out almost 2 years. Woodley did that when he was the champ too. You know, it makes it harder when the one thing that we do is you have a year to defend your title, which is a very long time, right? And if you don't, we move on. But most of these guys, listen, if you don't want to fight, you don't have to fight.
And last thing for me, obviously yesterday you spoke about John Jones, and then as soon as you finished talking, he basically tweeted out saying that if you want to, he'd like you to show those texts that you supposedly have, and still basically saying that you're not telling the truth about the interaction. Any plans to show those texts?
What do you do? Who do you believe? It's up to you guys.
Fair enough.
Fuck what I lie for. What do I gain in lying about it? Why would I lie? It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Obviously he's fired up right now, and he had a great talk yesterday with Hunter, my lawyer, who's, he's really close to John Jones and likes him, and they have a good relationship, and they had a good talk yesterday. But here's what it is. I really don't care. I could care less, to be honest with you. So,
actually a good talk, a positive talk, not.
Yeah, they had a good talk. They had a good talk yesterday. Those guys are tight. John Jones and I have always had this. I'm always looking at what John Jones could have been. He could have been the LeBron of the sport. He could have been literally that big. The stuff that he's been through to show up and think he, basically demand $15 million or $20 million or $30 million. It's crazy. So he can do whatever he wants to do. He can sit out. He can fight. He can whatever. You know how this works. You guys know how I am. John Jones can say whatever he wants publicly. It's his God-given right here in America. He can say whatever he wants. And when he's ready to come back and fight, he can.
I saw a lot of people saying, like, why can't he make Deontay Wilder money? I mean, you said he's the greatest of all time, right? So
being the greatest of all time doesn't mean you get $30 million. Being able to sell. John Jones has done a lot of things to himself. He's saying, in one of his tweets, he was saying that I tarnished you? You've done a very good job of tarnishing you. No, I haven't done that. Hunter told him, I'll walk in. You can come in here and walk through the numbers. I'll walk you through all the numbers. And he says, I don't give a fuck what the numbers are. I want what I want, and that's it. It's not how life works. Why don't you guys fly back and tell your boss, I don't give a fuck what this company makes. This is what I want. You're going to give it to me. See how that fucking works out for you.
Dana right here. There seems to be a lot of surprise that Carlisle and Quarantillo didn't get fight of the night online. So people are asking, like, who makes that decision? So who made that decision not to pick that fight?
Me, Sean, and Mick make that decision.
All right. And then,
we blew it, huh? Is that what you're telling us? Tell us we blew it tonight? No, that bums me out. Because, we all felt like, if you looked at at that Tim Elliott fight, and with Royval, that it was super technical. I mean, that fight was super technical. They were going back and forth, and I don't know. We felt like that was fight of the night. The other dudes was an absolute straight up dog fight. Absolutely, the Carlisle fight was a straight dog fight. So I'll kick those kids something.
Have you ever seen something like after the first round in the Quarantillo-Carlisle fight where Carlisle had turned around with like 5 seconds left and then Quarantillo?
Never saw that. I've never seen that in the UFC. I've seen it happen in boxing before. The famous one, what's his name, turned around and walked away from Lennox Lewis.
Oh.
Remember that? He just put his hands down, started walking away, and
he was just walking around the ring.
Yeah, exactly. But he turned his back to him too. I think, did you guys talk to him tonight? Did he think the bell rang or thought the round was over? I think they clapped the sticks and he thought that was the end of the round or something and got off him and started walking away. I don't know, but that's what I'm assuming. But yeah, that sucks. I'll take care of those kids.
And then really impressive performance from Callan Chukagian. She said that she felt it was her best performance. She got to show all the tools that she had. So where do you go with her after coming off, in her words, like Valentina dominated her, and then she puts on the best performance of her life?
Yeah, she looked good tonight. She looked really good, and she came in and she made a statement that, hey, I'm still one of the best in the world. Don't overlook me because of the loss to Shevchenko.
Hey, Dana, now that you've had events in two places, can you kind of compare and contrast? Was there anything more difficult about doing it here in Nevada, or was it easier because it's home? What were the differences?
The differences were, it was good to be home. It's good to be, here on our own property. And, but it was good. Listen, guys, we can do this anywhere. We can go to friggin' Alaska or, the North Pole. I don't care where we go. We can do this anywhere. My team is really, really good. We can do this anywhere.
I know you've said you've been spoken to people from other sports leagues that are looking to restart. What kind of advice have you learned that you've passed on in those conversations?
Well, the people that run these other sports leagues are really smart guys. They know their business better than I know their business. So basically, they have to dive in. It's very time consuming. You have to break down, an event piece by piece and figure out how you would keep people safe in that environment once you put on the event. These guys will figure it out. This really isn't rocket science.
Hey Dana, this is the first event here in Las Vegas since the pandemic, and I'm wondering, what does it mean for you to have live sports back in Las Vegas? And also, the backdrop is some crazy times going on with the pandemic, with the unrest nationally from coast to coast. What does it mean to have live sports back in Las Vegas, but also having live sports back in the country to give something people can kind of put their arms around?
No, it's awesome, and it needs to happen sooner, man. These other leagues got to start moving faster so we can really start to feel normal again. It's amazing when you don't have live sports, you realize how important they really are and how we need them as human beings. It can be done. I'm telling you, the biggest problem isn't COVID-19. COVID-19 isn't the reason all these sports leagues can't go. These guys can figure it out. It's financial. It's financially. This is a massive financial burden on everybody's company. I mean, where you guys work too. If and when you guys go back to work, it's a huge financial burden to do all the things that you need to do to comply with keeping the place safe. And I truly believe that's the real reason that you haven't seen any of the majors come back yet, because they're looking at what it's going to cost them. And again, like I told you before when I spoke to you guys the other day, one guy makes the decision here, me. And you know me, so we're fucking going. These other guys, you got the league, you got different owners with different opinions and different financial situations, and it makes it a lot harder to pull off than something like this.
Dana, on a lighter note, the other day you got in a heated argument with ESPN host Dan Levitard. It kind of ended where you would agree to a charity match with him. Is there legs to that? Is it going
Please let that be true.
MMA, boxing?
Please let that be true.
What would the rules be?
Who knows? Listen, I'll bend the rules for him. I'll give him. He says he's got 80 pounds on me, not 80 good pounds. Okay. There's 80 bad pounds or 80 good pounds. He's got the bad ones. Please let that be true.
Good for charity. Raise the money.
Sure. Any other questions?
As we were going through the process today of getting tested and hanging out in those hotel rooms, I could only think, gosh, this must be so expensive. And how is it even worth it to the UFC? What is the most expensive part of the testing and the protocols? But it still must be worth it to you.
It's so expensive. This whole thing is so expensive. I mean, normally Vegas would be open. We would cut a deal with the casino to get rooms. Now we have to rent out an entire hotel ourselves. I mean, the list just goes on and on. But like I told you guys the other day, the way that I always think and look at stuff like this is I always try to solve the problems. We're going to solve the problems. We're going to figure it out. The show's going to go on. I'm not just going to go home and stay in my house and not figure out my employee. The easy answer to this is I lay off most of my staff. Okay, lay off most of my staff. Take all my executives and cut their pay in half. Fighters don't fight. Listen, there's a pandemic going on here. You guys, whenever sports come back, we'll fight. And the list goes on and on. That's not what I do. That's not what I'm paid to do. That's not the way I'm built. It's not the way that I think and look at things. I feel like in the position that I'm in, I have an obligation to a lot of people. 350 employees here in Las Vegas who've worked hard for me for the last 20 years, right? Fighters, when I talk about the fighters, this sport has grown as big and as fast as it has because of nights like tonight. These kids come in and they perform. You know what I mean? I'm getting fucking goosebumps telling you the story. They perform and they put on great fights every time they step in the octagon. I can count in one hand how many times I've left a show and go, God, that whole show sucked. You know what I mean? In 20 years, I can count in one hand how many times. And I just feel like I have an obligation to all these people, and I have an obligation to the fans. So it's just the way I'm wired, and yeah. Financially, it's not a great situation, and I guarantee you that's why most of the other sports aren't jumping right in to come back, because it ain't cheap and it's a lot more work than 3 months ago.
But you're also a financially savvy guy.
Well, thank you.
I'm looking well for you to tell me if you agree with that or not.
I've done okay. You know, I've done all right. I think that I've been lucky because if you look at some of these other sports that have been around for 100+ years, they've had the luxury of big television deals, massive sponsors, tons of support from the media, and the list goes on and on. I had none of that starting out. We had to figure out how to make this thing work, how to make this business make money and pay, because what people forget is there are people who invest in this business. There are people that put money into this thing to make this work, especially, during times like this, so the people who take the risk have to get some reward. The fighters got to get paid. My employees got to get paid. The list goes on and on. We figured it out. And that's what we do. We figure these problems out, and I love it. That's really where I thrive. Chaos. I love it. Good? Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Especially the performance bonuses. I don't think I've ever heard Dana White say he was bummed out by announcing performance bonuses before, but there we are. If you missed it, you joined us late. Fight night was not Billy Quarantillo and Spike Carlisle. It was Tim Elliott versus Brandon Royval. And guess what? That fight was everything I said it would be. So they made me look like geniuses. But if you have to pick one fight, that was the fight of the night for tonight's card. And there were a lot of good ones. But Billy Q and Spike Carlisle was the fight of the night, if we're picking just one. Now, if he come out and given two, which he kind of did, he said he's going to take care of Billy Q and Spike Carlisle. That's good. They deserve that. Tim Elliott, Brandon Royval was a great fight. Huge debut for Brandon Royval, and I'm happy to hear that for another reason, because he was bummed that he didn't think his performance tonight would merit a bonus, and he gets an extra 50 G's, and maybe he's going to quit his job, Jose. Maybe Brandon Royval is going to call the juvenile detention center he works for and bang out. Maybe he's just going to bang out and be done with the whole thing. But he did tell me when we spoke that he's going to give his 2 weeks like a professional. So good news for Brandon Royval. But in the overall scheme of things, I'm sure you see the reactions on Twitter. Everyone was kind of in agreement that Billy Q and Spike Carlisle was the pick.
Oh, yeah, I'm the one that asked. I straight up asked him.
Yeah.
Well, people are a little shocked. Dana was not only confused, he just genuinely looked disappointed that he felt like he might have taken money away from fighters, and he was like, "Oh, that's disappointing. I'll keep some money their way." So they might not get the whole 50 G's, but they might get something. Now, which is good to hear, because I agree with you. That fight, I love the Tim Elliott Royval fight. Royval his story is great, but I don't know how you can look past Quarantillo and call him.
They should get 75 each. How about that?
Honestly, yeah, there you go.
Mackenzie Dern, Gilbert Burns, performance of the night. I mean, you said Mackenzie Dern, so you got that one right. Gilbert Burns, you can't have an issue with. I mean, it wasn't like he won 48-47 or 49-46. He dominated Tyron Woodley. Got a couple of 10-8 rounds in there. That was a brilliant performance from start to finish. So I get that. Do you agree with those two picks?
I agree with Mackenzie. I don't know if I agree with Burns. It's similar to it's tough to say because he dominated a former champion. But if you're just going that was an unbelievable performance. So if you just want to base it off of the name, he deserves it. But I don't know. In my mind, I still view performance of the night as like the old like submission of the nights, knockout of the nights, and so on and so forth. So Gutierrez was awesome. Kenny was awesome. Even Royval was awesome. Like, if he gave Royval a performance of the night and then gave Quarantillo and Carlisle the fight of the night, I wouldn't have an issue with that either. So, but then like Callum Chukagian basically pitched a perfect game. Like, the only difference is she had 2 less rounds, and it was against a former champion. It was against the sister of the champion. So I don't hate it. Burns obviously had the performance of his life, so I wouldn't have picked Burns, but I'm not going to argue against it.
Yeah, I have much less of a problem with the performance bonuses than I do with the fight of the night, but I'm happy for Tim and Brandon. That fight was insane, absolutely ridiculous. So good on them. Good on Brandon Royval. Hopefully he can quit his job. Maybe we'll try to catch up with him next week and see if that is the case. But you're looking at some photos of the night's festivities. There's Chris Gutierrez celebrating, I believe, the 11th leg kick TKO finish in UFC history.
I think it was 10th, but I'm not 100%.
It's actually, I think there was 10 different fighters who got it, but Edson Barboza got it twice.
All right,
so it's 11th overall.
All right, that makes sense.
Kudos to whoever I saw that from on Twitter. Casey Kenny, great performance. That was a wild fight for as long as it lasted, but a great win for him, especially after the Merab fight, because he got dominated in that Merab Dvalishvili fight. That guy Merab Dvalishvili is gonna have a hard time finding fights. I don't see a lot of 35ers stepping up to fight that guy, but Casey went in there, went 15 minutes with him, learned a lot in that fight, and then bounced back with an incredible performance. What did you think of Casey Kenny overall tonight?
Oh, I mean, I've seen Casey Kenny fight like almost his whole career. Like, he's an Arizona native. I've seen him fight on the local circuits. I've seen him fight in the LFA. So I've spoken to him like off record, on record. So it's good to see him. I'm looking at the bout sheet right now. It's good to see him finally get the attention that he always felt that he eventually would get. It was just a long journey, like 2 fights on the Contender Series. Not even just 2 fights on the Contender Series. 2 fights on the Contender Series when it was at the Tough House. So it wasn't even in the Apex. And then he gets that short notice fight against Ray Borg. And then he has to fight guys that are missing weight. So it seems like he can never catch a break. And then he finally gets the performance of his lifetime on the biggest stage of his career. And because like it might not be the biggest fight card in terms of stats, because he did fight at UFC. What was it? 241 was the Miocic DC2. Casey Kenny was on the prelim. So yeah, obviously a bigger card, but in terms of like the what's happening in the world and the UFC being the only game in town, you'd have to assume that he might view this as the biggest stage of his career. And easily, like, Louis Smolk is like a name. Like he's headlined cards, and he headlined a Dublin card, for crying out loud. I don't think the Irish ever recovered from him submitting Pat. The UFC hasn't been back since. So yeah, Louis Smolk is a big name. So yeah, I'm happy for Casey Kenny.
Yeah, and he told me when we chatted he wants to take Dana up on his offer, on his word that he wants to fight 4 or 5 times this year, and he wants to get right back on the island. He called out Henry Cejudo out of nowhere, which I thought was fun. But be interested to see where he goes from here. I think the fight he had with Manny Bermudez, with the weight miss and Manny weighing in probably like 160 on that fight and delivering the performance he had, I think that opened up a lot of people's eyes. Jamal Hill, big win tonight. He looked fantastic. He keeps silencing the doubters, and says he wants that John Jones fight. He didn't, and for those who may have taken that wrong, it's not like he asked for John Jones tomorrow. He said sometime at some point that fight needs to happen. Danny Rodriguez versus Gabe Green was a fun fight. Gabe Green stepping up a weight class. He's fought at 70 a couple times early on in his pro career, but he typically fights at 55. Gabe looked good in that 3rd round. That was a lot of fun. But Caitlin Chukagian, great performance from her. People were wondering how she was going to bounce back, and then she talked about having the baby fever and things like that. But one thing she was nervous to say in the past about that was she didn't want anybody to take it the wrong way, because when you say things like that, maybe your head's not in the game. I believe her. I mean, when you guys were talking, I believe you asked the question. I believed her. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, she what she says is what she's going to do. I mean, Casey and I were interviewed her before her fight against Valentina Houston. I was like, did you really like she got offered a fight against Valentina, I think, on the Abu Dhabi card, and she said, no, I'd rather get married instead, and then I'll take another fight, and then I'll fight for the title. So it's not like she knows what her priorities are in life. Like she said, she wants to get as many fights, and she's not done, but she has to prepare for the next chapter of her life. So yeah, I believe everything Callie Chookagian says, because she also like told the story about she like skipped her senior prom to have a Golden Glove boxing match. So like, what do you look? Anything this woman says, I believe.
Yeah, make it up for lost time. Doesn't have to be now. You know, a couple of years, get a few more fights in, maybe get back to a title shot if Valentina ever loses. But that's where we're at right now. I think there's some good fights for her down the road. I mean, we got Lauren Murphy and Roxanne Modafferi fighting on June 20th. Maybe the winner of that versus Chookagian makes a lot of sense. We got Jessica Guy and Cynthia Calvillo fighting on June 13th. They're headlining that card, and the winner of that could be an interesting one. I know Chookagian fought Ai before, but you know, I don't think either one of these women are going to be fighting for a title anytime soon. Even if Ai wins, I don't think she's fighting Valentina after that. But Mackenzie Dern, interesting question. Where do we go from here with Mackenzie Dern? I mean, Hannah Cifers, the fight went pretty much the way we thought it would. If it played out on the feet, Hannah Cifers had a huge advantage. But as soon as that fight hits the mat, you know, it's going to be all Mackenzie Dern. And Hannah Cifers had a chance to get up and separate and get it back to the feet, but she didn't. I couldn't believe it. And Mackenzie Dern gets a big win. Where does she go from here, you think?
I had no idea. I saw Angela Hill wants to fight her. Someone said, I like Angela Hill versus Mackenzie Dern. Angela Hill's like, all right, let's do it. So like, why not? Right? Angela Hill fight anyone. Mackenzie Dern's obviously super popular. Angela Hill is, I think she said it best when Casey and Esther were down shooting that kind of behind the scenes thing there. She was like, for all of you people, get on the train now. Like she can sense fans are starting to get behind her now that she's like the quote Donald Cerrone of the women's division. So yeah, I would. Why not? Any fight. I'll watch Angela Hill fight anyone, and Mackenzie Dern's a big name, and Angela Hill's treating this like she's coming off a win because a lot of people, including myself, thinks Angela Hill beat Claudia Gadelha in Jacksonville. So sure, I like that fight. But again, Mackenzie Dern's not quite ranked, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm down anything, like any of those fights.
Angela Dorina Hill. I love it. I love how she just wants to keep getting back in there. She got robbed in that Gadelha fight in a lot of people's eyes. Great win for Roosevelt Roberts tonight. We got a message coming up. Stay tuned for probably Gilbert Burns. I'm hoping that's what it's going to be. Gilbert Burns. Yes, what a performance! I'm very, very fascinated to hear what he has to say. I didn't get to hear his post-fight chat with DC, but Roosevelt Roberts, great win over Brock Weaver. They had we talked about this in the preview show, that after they faced off yesterday, that fight got a big boost. It got a little personal, and Roosevelt Roberts looked great. Best performance of his career. Calls out Matt Frivola, which kind of shocked me. If you watch my interview with Roosevelt Roberts, he said he promised that he would deliver a different name. He didn't. His coaches wouldn't let him. His manager wouldn't let him. I will say that I'm getting him back on What the Heck this week to see if we can solve this puzzle, because he promised, and I believe in promises, so maybe he'll deliver without his coaches and managers around. But thoughts on Roosevelt Roberts? And, he had that loss to Vince Pichel, bounced back with back-to-back wins, got his second finish in the UFC. Huge win for him. He looked great.
It was an amazing performance. Brock Weaver might not be the biggest, the highest ranked or best fighter he's fought, but like Brock Weaver has a fan base. I mean, people remember his debut, that DQ win. He's obviously like, people kept talking about just how Brock Weaver looks. Like people just gravitate towards this man. It wasn't as personal as Roosevelt Roberts made it out to be. He was just he got more annoyed that Brock Weaver missed weight and continued to talk trash backstage. And then they were talking at each other when they stared down. So it wasn't quite as personal. There was that weird fake Twitter beef where Roosevelt Roberts doesn't even have a Twitter, and someone created one for him and was talking trash at Brock Weaver and this and that. Roosevelt Roberts cleared that up. Doesn't have Twitter. Didn't take it overly personal, and he told Brock he says he respects Brock Weaver because he talked back. And when they were fighting, they made it a scrap. Like they were jawing at each other while they were fighting. So he said he respects Brock Weaver. But yeah, amazing performance from Roosevelt Roberts.
Yeah, Brock's a tough guy. Give him all the credit in the world. That was a big step up in competition. The betting odds were, I think, Roberts was one of the biggest favorites of the night. If he wasn't the biggest, he was one or two. He was probably two or three maybe, but he treated him accordingly, so he got it done. I believe Tyron Woodley's talking to ESPN right now, so maybe he will be sitting down at the podium. But I would assume Gilbert Burns is next. to live in the moment after a 5-round dominating performance over Tyron Woodley. I'm really interested to see what Tyron Woodley has to say, what is next for him. But if you guys are just watching right now and you're like, oh, this is the post-fight show, this is actually not the post-fight show. This is we're streaming all the post-fight scrums and press conferences. We heard from Augusto Sakai. We heard from Dana White, who had a lot to say about the John Jones situation and text messages and all that. What is your take on this whole John Jones versus the UFC thing? I was like, he's going to roll his eyes, and I asked, and you delivered.
It's weird though, because I was at that scrum when Dana said he's the greatest fighter ever, but then he doesn't deserve Deontay Wilder money. And I was like, then who deserves Deontay Wilder money if not the greatest fighter ever? It's just a weird, it was just back to back. I didn't like if anyone's gonna say it's gonna be Dana, it's gonna surprise me. But after that, I'm like, wait, like if John's the greatest, why don't you pay him to be the greatest? Deontay Wilder's not the best boxer. Probably put him the third best heavyweight in the world. And John Jones is the greatest mixed martial artist who ever lived in your mind, and give him the money. But I don't know. I have no idea. Supposedly these text messages exist. Supposedly John Jones had a good conversation with Dana's lawyer Hunter. So who knows? I genuinely do not know, because I never know. It's hard to predict what John Jones is going to do day to day. It's hard to predict what Dana White's going to say. Well, it's easier to predict what Dana White's going to say, but it's who knows? I have no idea. Until I see proof that these text messages exist, then I have no idea.
Do you believe Dana White when he says that John Jones and Hunter Campbell had a discussion and that it went well?
I would say so. I don't know if it went well, but I believe John Jones and Hunter Campbell had a discussion.
All right, so let me put you on the spot. Sometime in the next 90 days, John Jones versus Francis Ngannou will be at least booked.
90 days?
Yep.
No, false.
No?
No way. John Jones is going to fight. I bet John fights Jan. It's going to be Jan on John.
What about in 2020? So if John beats Jan, if they do the Blachowicz fight, and it seems like Dana White's favoring the Reyes matchup again. At first, he was like, we're going to give it to Jan, and then he put Dominic first. I don't know what he's going to do. I feel like if he doesn't do Ngannou, I think Reyes is going to get the rematch, because I think if we're going by the pulse of the fans, I think more people want to see the Reyes fight, and then maybe do Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira. Yeah, and the winner gets the winner.
Well, I don't know. In Jacksonville, Dana said possibly Reyes Glover, and the winner gets John.
Right.
I'm assuming John Jones beats Jan Blachowicz. So I don't know, man. The only more difficult division right now to match make is the welterweight division, because it's all. But then, at the same time, we both know who should be fighting for the title. But then the champions and these number one contenders are all jockeying for position. So I don't want to say it's a mess, because that means there's a lot of competition. But yeah, the light heavy division is a mystery, and the welterweight division is a mystery.
There's a lot of mysteries right now. Bantamweight's a mystery right now. We're talking Adrian versus Jose Aldo. That's not done yet, but it seems to be the direction we're heading, puzzling a lot of people.
Yeah. According to Casey Kenny, he's happy. He hopes Jose Aldo wins the championship because he wants to fight Jose Aldo. So, yeah, I think bantamweight's a little more certain now, because we have Sterling and Sandhagen booked already. And then we're going to have Aldo Jan is rumored for that, which I assume will happen, considering we've been hearing about this for a while. So bantamweight division is sort of on track. Dana White's come out and said the winner of I'm not going to say it, because every time I get excited for that fight, it doesn't happen. It is my white whale, but the winner of this featherweight contest that I've been calling for the better part of 4.5 years will get the winner of Volkanovski and Holloway. Lightweight is clear. Welterweight is a mystery. Middleweight's clear. Light heavyweight's a mystery, and the heavyweight's clear. So light heavyweight and welterweight, a little weird. And flyweight, of course. We're going to have that rematch between Benavidez and Figueiredo.
So what's your most fascinating division?
Gilbert Burns is here, so I'm going to flip it.
Dorino. After his big win against Tyron Woodley, he's going to have a lot to say. He might even say, I'm ready to fight next week. That's just how he is. Huge win for Gilbert Burns.
What's up?
Congratulations on a great performance over a former champion. Obviously, a big win for you, man. Quick evaluation. I mean, how do you feel like you executed tonight, and how are you feeling right now?
I felt great. I just execute everything that we trained, that we play.
I studied so much for this fight. I just hear to my coach, and I think the aspect to be on the empty arena before in Brazil, being cornering Vicente Luque in Jacksonville, I visualized so much. Like, I think at the fight with MMA, I got more nervous. But this one was more in the moment. I was a little bit more calm. I know he was danger in the beginning, so in the beginning I was very aware. But, like, nothing surprised me at all. I know it could hurt him. I kind of felt that he could hurt me more, but as the fight was going, I said, "Oh, okay, he hit hard, but like nothing like I never felt with Gene Luke. He hit super hard, and I just execute everything I trained. I visualized the fight on that way with the finish. I didn't get the finish on the beginning. That is not a bad thing for sure. I want to finish, but I want to show everyone that I can fight 5 rounds with the former champion, take him down and do everything that I did. You know, I feel great right now. For sure, still a lot of things that not being crazy, but a lot of things that need to get better, need to get fixed, the follow-ups, a couple things that Henry just pointed to me. But yeah, I'm happy with my performance for sure.
Clearly the biggest win of your career, but your emotion afterwards, you know, it looked like you were kind of fighting back tears a little bit. Can you say what was going through your head at that moment?
Yeah, because I sacrificed so much. I need to be in the moment. When I go to the fight, like when I sign a bout agreement, and I have a fight coming up, I make if I translate that, it's gonna be like a stairs of the ghost, or like stairs of the ghost. A lot of things that I need to do to win the fight. And the hardest thing to me is to be honest with myself and do everything that I plan to do. And I plan a lot of things. Oh, I got to stretch every day. I got to do this session. I got to do that session. I got to do this drill. I got to do that drill. I got to study. And I do so much on that. And it's hard to do every little thing. But I try to be honest with myself and do everything that I need to be on a crazy zone. And when I step in the octagon, I feel if I do everything that I said I supposed to do and I do it, I get there very comfortable and I get in the zone. So I got in the zone, but it's a lot of emotion to like, wow, I did everything I did. Okay, I'm happy. Now we're going to perform, and I execute, and just like, wow. It's just like, okay, it worked, you know, like it paid off. It's not easy. People don't realize, like, I got my 2 kids, I got my wife. But when I got to a camp, I need to go out a little bit. I need to be with myself. I need to study the fights. And I'm kind of nerdy on that. Doesn't look like, but I study a lot, I break down the things, and I make my notes. And it's a lot of work, and people don't realize that. But I think it's been showing off my performance. And after the fight, I always like, wow. It's kind of like a release, you know. Okay, I execute. Let's go, and then emotions come a little bit.
Can you point to what the key is to your success? Because you've always had talent, but there was a time when your spot on the roster was at risk, right? I mean, there was talk of them releasing you, and now you're about, you know, maybe having a number 1 contender fight in the very near future, maybe a title fight. What's the key to go from there to here?
It's a lot of things. It's not only one thing, but I remember that spot. Like, I remember I supposed to fight Paul Felder, and I had the surgery on my elbow. I didn't fight Felder, and that was the last fight on my contract. And they gave me Jason Sago, and I know I had to win that fight. But I started doing a lot of things. I changed my conditioning coach. I started doing a mental coach. I started adding a lot. But I think one of the things that helped me a lot was got back to jiu-jitsu. You know, I was just like, that was my roots. I was falling in love with the striking, and I was just doing striking. I was sparring, and sometimes I was taking the guy down, and on the beginning it was too easy to take the guys down and submit, and then I like, you know, I'm in a comfort zone. I got to go more stand-up, and I started just going stand-up. And I missed the timing with the takedowns, and I missed the timing with jiu-jitsu. And then I kind of realized, okay, that's my roots. I need to come back. And then I started competing a lot of jiu-jitsu, training more. And I think that was the key. As soon as I got back to jiu-jitsu, everything started clicking a little bit. Takedowns were there, strike was there, and I just kept training. And I think it's kind of like clicking a little bit. And then took a couple losses. After that, I lost to Dan Hooker. That was another thing that I realized I need to study more. I cannot get I was get too pumped up to the fight. I rocked the guy a little bit. I was going forward crazy. I want to finish the fight, and then after that fight, I learned that. But I think it's just a process. And after I stopped with the crazy weight cut, I started performing a lot better too. That was the key, I think. One of the keys. It's a lot of things, not one thing that I can point, but we stopped with that craziness. Yeah, I felt a lot better.
Nice. Last thing for me, we don't know what's going to happen yet with the title fight, but I mean, you obviously have a very good case for being in there. Have you talked to your team about how that would work? How would it work if you and Usman were to fight? How would the preparation work? How would the coaching work? How would it play out?
I don't know. That's gonna be weird. I don't know, but we're both professionals. I like the guy a lot. I'm not just being no. I like the guy. He motivated me a lot when he became a champion. I saw him zero. He didn't have his pro debut when I met him, and we always like to work together because I have the jiu-jitsu. He had the wrestling. We grapple a lot crazy since the beginning. Yeah, I don't know. It would be weird, but I want to fight for the title. No, I want to be the champion, and he's the champion. That's the only reason I'll call for this fight. Otherwise, it not make no sense. But yeah, I want to fight for the title next. I know it might be Masvidal and all that craziness, but I just told Dana on the backstage, hey, I'm available for July. You know, if those guys keep going crazy, I want to fight for the title. If not, if you book another fight for the title, give me who is available. If it's not Colby, give me Leon Edwards. Give me I just want to stay busy.
Gilbert right here. Before your fight at the media day, you said that Kamaru was giving you a lot of good insights before your fight with Tyron. So after spending 25 minutes with Tyron, did anything surprise you in there?
Not really. He's normal. He's just a human being like me, like you. I think, let's say he has like a couple gimmicks as an athlete. He's strong. He has more reach than me, but as a fighter, yeah, nothing crazy, but speed on the hands, power, but nothing special. Like a tough fighter, but nothing. Oh, he hit hard. Yeah, he does. Look at Vicente, look right there. He hits hard juice. And we sparring before his fight, before my fight. That guy hit super hard, and then I gotta be like, we spar before my fight, we spar before his fight. I gotta keep my hands up, otherwise that guy knocked me out on the warm up. So it's nothing different, you know.
And then on Twitter, for a while you were calling everyone out in multiple weight classes. I even think you offered to fill in at middleweight when you were in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Now at this point in your career, do you have to be a little more selective after this big win?
My manager Ali, he just said that, hey, stop with the craziness right now. But the thing was in Jacksonville. As soon as Jacare got the COVID-19, I would say, wow, they might cancel everything. You know, I might not fight Tyron Woodley. I might fight this guy tomorrow. I better get that fight anyways. They wait and everything get canceled. And I call Sean. He said, you crazy? You're going to fight Woodley. And then I say, I'm just, the fight's still up. Yes, the fight's going to, okay, no problem. But he got crazy. He said, no, I think I need to be a little bit more selective right now for sure. But I think all my improvement, all my evolution on the sport is just because I'm competing. I'm getting better. I'm fighting, and I'm not afraid to fight. I want to fight for sure. I want to fight for the title next. But if it's not happening, don't think I'm going to hold on that position. I'm going to fight another guy.
And one final one, you fought in Brazil, and then you cornered Vicente in Jacksonville. But those were in arenas. This was in a smaller venue with a smaller octagon. So did it feel a lot different fighting in the Apex?
Not really. In Brazil was crazy. First experience, empty arena in Brazil was like, I got nervous on the beginning. I was like, wow, okay, I'm fighting. But then I went to Vicente, and was the same feeling. And then I started visualizing a little bit. And then I got to the Apex, and I got here on Thursday to do the media, to do the pre-fight interview. And then I like, hey, let me take a look right here. Let me see what's going to be and then I kind of took that look. Thursday I did my visualization. I kind of go aware with the place. Friday again, today again, and I felt great today, to be honest. I wasn't nervous. I was in the gray zone going to the fight.
It sounds like you have a process that you go through to get your mind in fight ready. Was this any different as you went through your process right there?
No, same process, a lot of work. Even I think that one was a little better because I had more time. But on those short notice, a lot of work. People have no idea. Like for the 2 weeks notice that I got to fight with Gunnar Nelson and the Alexei Kunchenko, I got to go through all that process in 2 weeks. It's harder, but I think I've been getting a lot of confidence after those fights, and I have time to this fight to approach all. I know where mentally I gotta be on the fight physically, and especially when they changed the date for the 23rd for the 30th. That extra week was amazing. Was when I click everything, I put everything together, and I'm like, okay, we're going to the fight, and everything clicks on a perfect time.
You mentioned it was really strange to fight without an audience in Brazil. Is it tougher to get up to go, I'm in a fight without the audience for you?
In Brazil, it was hard to make that okay with fighting, it was, but like I said, going to the Vicentes Luque fight, I got a little more aware of that. And facing Tyron Woodley, he's dangerous in the beginning. I had to do these adjust, or being nervous on the beginning, be aware in the beginning, because Damian wasn't that threat for me on the beginning, because he's more as a grappler. I'm a grappler too, and I could get a little nervous and a little get things up as the fight was going. But Woodley is danger, I got to be aware since the fight started, and I think I realized that, and I adjust that and I execute.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, whole body. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
I try, I'll peruse the comments on YouTube after I do interviews. And I remember when I spoke to Gilbert Burns before this fight was booked, and he was talking about losing respect for Tyron Woodley, how Tyron turned him down 3 different times, and he ended up getting the fight. And people were just like, dude, don't call that shot. It makes absolutely no sense. You got no chance. Just kind of speaking with essentialities here. But man, did Gilbert Burns prove a lot of people wrong from 3 weeks ago? But how can you not like that guy, Jose? He comes in and says, I'm ready to fight in June. What a surprise, right?
I mean, I joked about it. Oh, sorry about that, mask and what have you. I joked that if anyone was going to fight Tyron Woodley in the UFC welterweight division on short notice during a pandemic, that'd probably be Gilbert Burns, because he's down to fight everyone. He himself said, though, got to be a little more selective now that he's in this position. So if he fights for the title, or Edwards or Colby or whoever, he's down to fight any of them. But don't think he's just going to sit around and wait. He wants to keep fighting. He wants to stay active. So yeah, he should be more selective. He's at that point in his career, but don't expect Gilbert Burns to change anytime soon.
I would agree with that. As this is all going on, Tyron Woodley went live on his Instagram Live, so he will not be at the press conference to speak. He was in the vehicle, and one of the things I took out of it was he said, I've lost twice in a row. I got dominated. This wasn't like the Kamaru Usman fight where I felt like I wasn't there. I was there the entire time. Everything went well. The camp was good. Visualization was good. The stretch and the warm-up before the fight was good. Everything was fine. And then, he gave Gilbert Burns all the props in the world, but he also said, I lost 2 in a row. It's never happened to me. I got to get back and get better. He's not going anywhere. So Tyron Woodley will be back.
I'm glad to hear that, because the division needs fighters like Tyron to headline cards and bring eyeballs to the 170-pound division. 100%. And he is incredibly outspoken. I remember when, speak of what's going on in the world right now. I remember when the Ferguson riots were going on. Tyron Woodley was incredibly outspoken about it, because that's of course where he's from. So the UFC needs fighters like Tyron Woodley to speak out and to voice his. Whether you agree with him or not, he's an important figure in this division.
Yeah, he said that was one of the bigger letdowns of the night, is he wanted to put a positive spin on everything going on in the world, and the death in Minnesota and all that stuff, and with George Floyd, just horrible stuff. And we see what's going on around the country right now. It's just a tough situation for a lot of people, and Tyron wanted to come through in a big way for everybody. But Jose, you have been a mensch. You have been a guy that has just been all over the place over these last few weeks. we're gonna let you go, man. We're gonna let you pack up your stuff and get out of that 109-degree tent that you've been in with the suit jacket the entire time. It's a little cooler in there.
It's actually, they got the AC working, so it's not the end of the world this time.
All right, well, that's good. Well, thank you for all of your hard work as always, Jose, and we'll let you go.
Shout out to Damon, AK, Steven, Esther, Casey, and of course my partner in crime, Alex Savas, for holding the fort down while I am in this tent and they are working from their quarantine. There you go.
I was waiting, but hopefully you're not sick of my my Dana White child-looking face, because in a matter of moments, we're gonna get AK Lee on and we're gonna do an actual post show. So I hope you're not sick of me yet. We'll be back in a matter of moments. Jose, thank you for the time. I am Mike Heck. We'll see you in a few minutes for the official UFC on ESPN 9 post-fight show right here on MMAfighting.com.